99% of the time I walk away. But once in a while, I'm human, I make mistakes, you know what I mean? No, I don't know, man.
See, that's where my argument with you would be that you got to be, because of the business you're in, you got to be 100% of the time. Especially because of your business. You're in the fight business. And especially when guys start drinking, I can take that guy, he doesn't look so tough. To me, you can't fight with the guy. You're a weapon. Legally, you are a weapon.
It does suck. It's almost like that's part of the job that you're gonna have to take a rash of crap from idiots when you go out to bars, and they are gonna push you. And I know it sucks.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to deal with. I deal with the best I can. I've turned down millions of times. This last one, the guy was humongous, dude.
Yeah.
And I was actually kind of intimidated, so I felt a little bit threatened. But it's definitely not. I'm not going out looking for fights. I was things happen, man. And I'm not perfect, but people get fights all the time. You know what I mean? And nothing happens to them. It's all because they recognize you or whatever. It's not like these guys are in comas. I didn't hurt them.
How much of an impact has it had in either direction, negative or positive? Because I'm not completely sold on the idea that this is actually all negative in terms of the publicity. I think from some perverted standpoint, it may help sell tickets.
No, I mean, definitely my controversy has helped get my name out there. I'm way more popular than I should be. I'm way more popular than fighters that are a lot better than me. Way more popular, and it's because of these things that have happened. And that's one of the positive things, I guess. But there's been bad things too. It's not.
No, I mean it's cost you a lot. We'll get into some of the MySpace stuff, but in a way, I think they had a real short leash with you after the San Diego fight, and then some of the MySpace stuff with UFC. No one wants to get booted from UFC, so that sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. UFC, that's the cool place to fight. That's when you're a superstar. It's cool. That's where everyone recognizes you. You're the cool guy. So yeah, that's when I was a little kid. I wanted to be in the UFC. That was my dream. But I didn't get booted from the UFC because of fighting. I did it because that was some political crap.
Well, the story we heard was that you got offered a fight. You turned it down. That was about the same time that there was a flap on the internet over Evan Tanner. And you know what? I've heard you explain it. I want you to explain it to the audience. Evan Tanner passed away last year. He went out to the desert, mysteriously died. I said it that day that, the guy actually talked about suicide at times. He had a rough time the last couple of years. He was an alcoholic. I had written up on the Yahoo blog that I was a little freaked out because I think he had foreshadowed the whole thing about 2 weeks before. He said, I have to get all my supplies ready for this camping trip because you know what? I could go out there and never come back. And you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You don't talk like that. So then Jon Koppenhaver's with us. You put this MySpace bulletin out. Now your mistake here is everyone's very sensitive at this time. You put this bulletin out like, hey, you know what? In some ways, I can believe that he actually offed himself in the desert because when you're a fighter and maybe you feel like you have nothing else going on, that's your last resort. Now that's sad for you to say, but maybe you have better perspective. But I'm telling you, people did not react to that well. Am I basically wrapping up what you said?
For the most part, people took it the wrong way. They thought that I was talking poorly about Evan Tanner, and I wasn't. If anything, I was actually sticking up for the guy. I met him. He was a great guy. I was at his last fight with Kendall Grove, who was one of my best friends. I was backstage. I watched the fight. I actually thought it was going to be a hard fight for Kendall, and Kendall ended up dismantling him. And backstage, I saw the guy, Evan sitting there, and I saw the look on his face, and he looked sad. He looked beaten down. He looked like a guy at the end of his rope. And it was heartbreaking, man, to watch him. It really was. And then to have him die so shortly after, and a mysterious death, they said, he was in the middle of the desert doing some quest, and he died. Right away, I said, oh, man, dude, he must have killed himself, Right away, I posted a bulletin saying, what do you expect? Guys, they fight their whole life. Evan Tanner was a champion, fought his whole life. He wasn't rich. He didn't make enough money to probably retire. I'm pretty sure. I've spoken actually on MySpace to some of his friends and family, after the event. And he knew he wasn't making a rise back to the top. He just lost. I think he had a lot of emotional turmoil. And I've said it many times to my friends. Hey man, when my career is up, and if I have nothing going, it might be a wrap. I might just kill myself too. And it's the truth. I think a lot of fighters feel that way. And my buddy Justin Levens just killed himself. A month ago? Him and his wife. And then his coach Jeremy Williams killed himself too last year. So hey man, that's what happens when you're an athlete, man. You work your butt off all your life. You want to succeed. You play the sport, you know. And if you don't make it all the way, if you're not one of the 3% that makes the big bucks, what do you have left? You're gonna go get a job? No.
So what? So in view of what's happened with guys that you know, at some point everybody's career ends. Doesn't matter what sport it is or what job it is. Have you thought about things that so you make sure that you don't get into that situation where you're that down?
Yeah, but you know, like careers end, but you know, there's guys in the NFL and they have a union and
coaching and stuff like that.
Well, they have a union and they make a certain amount of money per year.
Yeah.
They have all these benefits with medical. We don't even have medical insurance. We have nothing. You know what I mean? So these guys, if they spend all their money they make from the NFL, that's their fault. They're dumb. But we don't make the money to even spend it. You know, I mean, a lot of us are just broke. So, you know, my plan is hopefully, you know, fight as many fights as I can, make my name as big as it can be, and get my own gym. You know, gyms make a lot of money, and that's my plan. But God forbid if something goes wrong, I find myself, you know, 42 and broke. Hey, man, it's about to end. You know what I mean? That's just the way it's gonna be. I'm a warrior, man, and if I can't go to war, then it's a wrap. I don't want to live. You know what I mean?
That's Jon Koppenhaver, a fighter who's in studio with us, formerly with the UFC, was on the reality show. A lot of controversy, and most of it's web-based because of his MySpace bulletins, which are kind of a must-read. Anytime I see the MySpace come across, I'm like, uh-oh, here we go. And you hear the way Jon talks. I think there are a lot of fighters who think that way. They're kind of that is their whole world. I think, you know, most of the guys, my impression is most of them are pretty even-keeled, but then I think there are others who, you know, are a little wacky, and I'm sorry if I keep calling you that, but you actually, I think, are you still medicated? You take stuff?
Yeah, well, actually, I do take medication. I have for a year, ever since the show, actually, because I need it, man. I actually had, like, a lot of problems with anxiety and panic attacks and stuff, and a little bit of depression, and on the show with Ultimate Fighter, it really, like, it got bad.
People freak out on that show, and especially if you got problems, that it sounds like that setting just drives even the most normal people nuts.
Yeah, it does, because, you know, I need to go hang out with the chick. I need to go watch a movie. I need to walk my dog. I need to go out and I need to watch a movie. I need distractions, you know. You can't sit there all the time and think about one thing, especially when you have anxiety problems. It freaked me out in the house, and I thought, before I was always too tough. Psychiatrists, that's for weak people, you know what I mean? Medication's for weak people. And after that show, I said, hey, I'm over that, and I'm going to try this. And I've been on it for over a year now, and this made me 1,000,000 times better. Before
what did it help? What do you take?
I take Lexapro, and it helps it. Everything, man. I mean, before I was on medication, I wouldn't even go out at all because I knew what would happen. I was volatile bad, you know what I mean? And actually, that first incident when I choked the guy was before I was on medicine. I actually got medicine 2 weeks after that. But anyway, since then I've been way, but I can go out, I could have fun. I couldn't even have fun. I couldn't even go to a club and have fun. I couldn't. I would get mad about anything. So now I'm way more easygoing. My friends say, man, like you used to be way crazier. I'm way more mellow, and I don't notice any difference. But I could just, it just happened. I feel way better. I don't have that panic attacks. I don't have anxiety. It's a miracle. Like I want them to endorse me. I want to always speak about it because if a tough guy like me that fights for a living and is macho can like take some dumb medicine and still be fine with it, then other guys I think a lot of men don't take medicine because they're macho. Well, that's for weak people. And you know what? It's not for weak people. It's for people, the chemical imbalance. What are you going to do?
Now you say that though, and if I owned one of these companies, I would love to sign you up, but you did just punch a guy out last week. So, what were you on medication then?
Yeah, but I was only one punch. Maybe if I was on medicine, if I was on medicine, that might have been 25, 30. It might have been a wrap. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's a little scary, man. It is. It's scary. I got to say, I know we all have troubles, but you got to control yourself.
Yeah, but
that's the
like
issue.
The dude wanted to fight. We were saying, let's do it, back and forth, and we did it.
I know, but when people when they look at it from the outside, you're a pro, and it's the same thing as a boxer. And I not to keep harping on it, but it does suck. It does suck for you guys if people challenge you all the time.
Let's face it. Look, neither one of us are in a situation where. Maybe it's not so easy, especially if, in your case, you get the chemical thing, to turn the dial down.
Yeah.
So but if this stuff is helping,
it's helped a lot.
Yeah.
Way
Sounds like you're having more fun.
Way more fun.